So, we're back for another episode here with Lee Bratcher. First one with Lee Bratcher, which, Lee, you were one of the first guys we wanted to get on. So finally, due to your busy schedule, we were able to pin you down, even though it's in Austin.
You know, the time that we were going to try to do it was during Empower, and it was right when the Senate Bill 1751 kicked off. So we decided instead to do that huddle where we grabbed a bunch of people from Empower, got them in the conference room next door, and, went to town on some planning. So that
I didn't make
derailed
the
it.
cut, apparently. I didn't get to go huddle in that room.
You were supposed to
You
be
were on
there.
stage.
Oh, was I?
You were
Oh,
on.
okay. All right. Thanks. Whew, thank you. I thought it was another one of those, like, I go to see the bouncer and he says your name's not on the list kind of deal. But no.
I'm pretty sure you're on stage.
Well, yeah, speaking of that, Bill, that was actually, we were just talking about, that was probably one of your guys' biggest legislative wins this year, was actually killing something. But I'll let you talk about that more when we get into it. But yeah, man, thank you for coming on. And we know you're a very busy guy and you've been doing a lot. I think you're probably one of the biggest and best advocates, not only in Texas, but honestly, from the political standpoint in the country. So I, for one, want to thank you for your efforts, and anybody that has to spend that much time with politicians is doing God's work. So we appreciate you taking one for the team and doing what you're doing with the Texas Blockchain Council.
Happy to. They're not all that bad. I actually like some of them.
No, I know. I agree. Actually, I don't know if you know this. I used to work for the U.S. House of Representatives for Kevin Brady, and
Okay.
and so I got to know him and his family very well, and a really good dude. Got nothing but good things to say about him. He's retired now, but I hope you're enjoying your time, Congressman Brady. But yeah, they're not all as bad as people tend to make them out to be, but it's still a difficult job, and sometimes it's like a necessary evil, and sometimes. So we do appreciate what you do, and you do a great job of it. You've really built the Texas Blockchain Council into kind of a model organization for a lot of the other states to follow. In fact, I get calls from different states that are looking to help set up a blockchain council in their state if they don't have one, or to just grow theirs. And I can tell you, every single time they bring up an organization, they bring up the TBC as kind of what they want to emulate and follow. So yeah, that's a kudos to you, man, because you really you took the bull by the horns and built it into what it is. So good job. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been fun and really not possible without great members and great folks like you guys and others who are spreading the word, and also a little bit of luck too, right? China bans Bitcoin mining like a year, 9 months after I start the TBC. It was probably a year after. And that brings just a huge influx of business to Texas. So.
Yeah, man. And lucky breaks is what makes life fun. So you never know when they're going to happen, dude. And you took advantage of it. So I'll stop kissing your butt now.
Let's go with some hard-hitting questions right off the bat. Before we dive into the bill. So for one, I want to talk more about like the mission of TBC. I know there was chatter last year at the summit. There was a lot more content this year around Bitcoin mining specifically. Obviously, that's what this podcast is about. And so I'm kind of curious as to, has TBC evolved from the first time that you got involved in it? I don't even know if you were involved in founding it or if you came in after. I would love to kind of hear more of that story, but has that evolved kind of over time? And then what is the current mission and focus of TBC?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I started it back when I was a political science professor. I was researching property rights and how blockchain and Bitcoin can improve property rights. I was actually at the Army War College studying property rights when I read the white paper for the first time in 2015. So I was not super early to the game. I guess that is somewhat early by some standards, but I wasn't like a 2011 type guy into the Bitcoin world. And the way that we phrase the mission, is making Texas a leader in Bitcoin, blockchain, and digital assets. So we are first and foremost an industry association representing the Bitcoin mining industry. We don't exclusively focus there, although I would say about 60% of our effort and resources is around the mining industry. The other 40% is a combination of law firms, private equity firms, accounting firms, digital asset companies, real estate tokenization, even a couple enterprise blockchain companies like Oracle and a few of those types of like traditional enterprise companies. So we have a decently broad mandate. We steer pretty clear of the things that get way far out on the edge. We don't do anything like metaverse related or anything that we don't have a great degree of confidence in. We tend to not focus much effort on, and also we don't have any members in that world. Then there's really no reason for us to do anything in that world. So we stick in our lane on those kind of topics and focus our energies kind of according to what percentage of members fall into each one of the buckets.
Obviously, has it changed over time from, you're talking about blockchain, digital assets, Bitcoin mining. TBC Summit this year seemed like very heavily focused on Bitcoin mining. I loved it. Has that been controversial at all with certain people? I know you've got like the Bitcoin maxis who are like, screw everything else that's not Bitcoin. Yeah. And you have like a whole ecosystem and you have member companies and stuff that you need to like worry about and stuff. So I'm just kind of curious how you guys are thinking about that from where it started to where it is now and the future moving forward.
Yeah, we take arrows from both sides sometimes. We take arrows from Bitcoin maxis because we don't do exclusively Bitcoin. Most of the miners don't really have a strong, proclivity. Like they're a little bit more about business than about ideology. But I would say that as an industry association, we are fighting for the Bitcoin ideology of freedom, decentralization, concerns against federal overreach, hard money, sound money. But we do it in a just a complementary way. I would say that people that are maxis like Parker and Jimmy, I consider friends. We see things mostly the same way, but they just have a different style, and I think their style is needed. Our style is a little bit more ecumenical, if you will. Like we're willing to work across the aisle and work with different parts of the industry. So it's all rowing in the same direction, just different styles. Yeah, we take arrows from like the smart contract ecosystem as well. They think that we're Bitcoin maxi because we don't work with, we don't do a lot of work on like Solana, Avalanche type ecosystems. We'll work in the Ethereum ecosystem with companies like Consensus and others, but that's about as far as radical as we go.
Yeah, we need all voices, man. I think that's part of the problem that you probably actually deal with a lot of this with the political, being in the political world. We need a diverse set of voices on everything and opinions for things to actually become as good as they can be. If you get too ideological on either side and those are the only voices, then you get kind of the political world we're living in now. So I think it's good. Parker's great. Jimmy's great, you're great, and we need everybody in between too. So, I don't have a problem. I'm a true libertarian, so I'm like, hey man, let people be who they are, and that's okay. And that means there's gonna be good things that come out of some of these other areas, and there's gonna be good things that come from the maxi world too. So, I'm all for it. But yeah, so Lee, I know we're on kind of a long legislative break now, as far as the session being, out, and we're not going to see one now for a while. But what do you guys do kind of in between session? What is it like? What is the TBC doing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, that's a good question. We are, in a sense, we're kind of refilling the coffers from a political standpoint, right? Political capital as well as actual capital. So we're working on building a PAC that can make contributions to elected officials and put on dinners and increase influence. During the session, we're so focused on building. We're so focused on the policy side of it and the advocacy side of it and the education piece that we really deplete kind of the entity as a whole. So we're recovering from that front, kind of taking a breath and building the association back up from an influence perspective, so that next time the session comes around, the 89th session comes around, January of 2025, we'll be ready to rock and roll and pass some bills and get some bad bills killed to make sure that Texas, remains the Bitcoin mining capital of the world. Which some new data out. I don't know if y'all saw the tweets from, I can't remember the guy's name, but he did a nonce analysis of aggregate hash rate, global hash rate, and using those numbers and what we know about the Texas hash rate, as far as megawatts is concerned, actually it was a gigawatt analysis that he did. I think his numbers were 16 gigawatts. Y'all can correct me if I'm wrong if y'all saw the numbers. So global, and Texas has 2.2 gigawatts. So really it depends.
Wait, 2.2 out of 16 globally?
Mm-hmm.
16 gigawatts globally. There's a couple different numbers though. Like I've seen 3 numbers, right? There's Cambridge. There's this new guy who I can't remember his name. He's on Twitter. I'll probably look him up in a minute. And then there's a third. And so you see the Texas share of Bitcoin mining range from, anywhere from 15 to 19% globally, depending on which aggregate number you use, with 2.2 gigawatts here in Texas.
That is amazing. And what was it prior to the Chinese exodus?
We don't really have a lot of hard data on that.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was early still.
Our estimates was that, back in 2021, we had about 600 megawatts total in Texas.
That's wild.
At that time, the riot site was probably hashing at about 150 megawatts.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
Obviously, it's much, much bigger now. But
yeah. So at the organization, I know Steve Kennard is actually running for office now. Is he planning on staying on the TBC, or is that going to not be? Is he going to be able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have him stay as long as he can. If he gets elected to office, I doubt that would be possible.
Right.
But he's a great member of the team, and he's going into this thing eyes wide open.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, he's got a really good chance of winning that primary. His primary candidate was arrested recently for something pretty significant. I think it was domestic violence, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so it's kind of a sad deal there. So he's actually probably going to win the Republican primary. And so you never know what's going to happen in the general. A lot depends in Texas on, if Donald Trump is a Republican nominee, then a lot of down ballot candidates in Texas, especially in the suburbs, are going to struggle.
Mm-hmm.
If you have somebody like DeSantis or Vivek or someone like that, then down ballot candidates in the suburbs are going to do well. So a lot of it depends on who's at the top of the ticket. But Steve's going to crush it on the campaign,
right?
And he's going to be talking about freedom, privacy, education, and Bitcoin mining. But he knows that doesn't resonate with the everyday voter yet.
Right.
So more of like the principles around the industry rather than like the industry itself.
Yeah. Well, and just to think though that there's going to be more and more, because and I do want to ask you about this kind of as a follow-up, but there's more and more, especially younger politicians around the country that appear to be kind of, they're Bitcoin advocates, and there's actually been some on both sides of the aisle that are starting to make it not necessarily their platform. We've seen RFK do it over, he's making that somewhat of a major part of his platform. But it does feel like there's more and more that are kind of coming into politics with at least discussing their positions on Bitcoin. I haven't heard as much about Bitcoin mining necessarily from a political standpoint as far as making it part of their platform, but Bitcoin in general, I've been hearing more and more politicians, again, especially younger ones, discussing it and kind of their thoughts on it, and whether it be kind of the aspect of anti-big banks or whatever it may be, they seem to be making it somewhat of an issue for them. Have you guys kept a pulse on that? And like in Texas, do you have any idea of how many are kind of really making Bitcoin part of their kind of political position?
Well, you're absolutely right that it's a generational thing.
Mm-hmm.
We had some survey data from about a year ago that showed that between the ages of 18 and 29, 48% of Texans in that age range own Bitcoin or some other kind of digital asset.
Wow.
So a huge number. Now that when you go 65 and up, it's 6%.
Wow.
So very much a generational thing. I think elected officials that have long time horizons from both parties. Like I listened to a podcast from Richie Torres he represents part of New York, I think part of Long Island. Amazing guy, like amazing public speaker, incredible knowledge about Bitcoin. He's a Democrat on the Financial Services Committee. He voted with Patrick McHenry to advance the market structure bill, the stablecoin bill. Knowledgeable guy, and he sees the writing on the wall. It's going to be hard for somebody like Maxine Waters or even Sherrod Brown on the Senate side, or even some of our older Republican senators are really struggling with it. You know, some of the biggest opponents that we have here in Texas are actually rural Republican senators. And I think that's just an education gap, you know, sort of a misunderstanding. Like we align with them on a lot of things. That's why we didn't go too hard in the paint on attacking them, because we thought maybe eventually they can be allies, but in the short term, they don't understand the industry and they're really coming after us. They really are misinformed. They think it's they think that, you know, China is using this industry to, as sort of a, you know, as a campaign to disrupt the grid, disrupt the grid or do some things like that. So a lot of misinformation and a misunderstanding, but it really does fall on, you know, 65 and older really struggle with it, and people under that age really get it.
What about like Texas specifically? Have you seen any Democrats come kind of over to the pro Bitcoin side, whether it be from, you know, from the energy infrastructure aspect? Because I do think there's tremendous benefit. We talk about on the show all the time, the energy aspect of Bitcoin mining, but Bitcoin in general. Have you seen those on the left in Texas, which the Texas left is very different than the Elizabeth Warrens of the world. So I know that, you know, a Texas Democrat is probably the equivalent of a moderate Republican in Pennsylvania, but you know, that's people need to understand that too. I think that the party's not the same everywhere. And so, but have you seen some in Texas on, you know, the Texas Democrats that are proponents, or is it are they playing kind of the hardline left position on it?
No, we see a lot of support from Democrats in Texas, and you're right. They're pretty centrist Democrats when you compare them to Northeast Democrats. You've got people like Salman Bohani up in the DFW area, Representative Busey down in the Central Texas area, Oscar Longoria, Penny Morales Shaw in y'all's area in Houston. So there's probably two or three others that I'm forgetting. That I'm not even mentioning the senators. You got Senator Johnson from the DFW area, who's a Democrat, who's very, you know, he's an attorney and probably in his 40s, so he's really read up on this kind of stuff. So we're seeing support from both sides of the aisle, absolutely.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to know.
Let's dive into the bills that you guys have had to get involved in that have kind of posed some threats. There was the one that you mentioned when we first before we hopped on the call. I think there was another big one this year, but just kind of walk us through kind of recent history, what's popped up, what are the implications for those, and kind of where they stand.
Yeah, the first, obviously the one that the audience has probably heard about is Senate Bill 1751. That would have limited Bitcoin miners' ability to participate in ancillary services, and also stripped away some tax benefits that accrue to the data center industry, and basically prohibited Bitcoin miners from participating in those abatements that Amazon and Facebook and some of these big, you know, conglomerates are able to get. So with that bill, what really happened is there was an industry group. In fact, we were told this by a staffer in Senator Kolkhorst's office. There was an industry group that came to them and said, hey, Bitcoin miners are taking up too large of a share of ancillary services. and we don't think that's right. So a couple months later, we get this bill. But really what that says is, that comment says, hey, we were an industry that used to extract a lot of value from ERCOT and therefore the ratepayer around ancillary services. And now that Bitcoin miners are here and they're bidding the price lower and ERCOT is having to pay less for these demand response services like LR and CLR, which those aren't household names, load response and controllable load resource. Now that Bitcoin miners are here, those prices are being bid down, and they don't want to have to compete, and so their share of that pie was getting smaller. So it was really a regulatory capture issue, and we certainly didn't think that was fair. We also didn't think it was fair that AWS and Facebook would get a tax abatement for putting up data centers so people can look at more Instagram photos, and Bitcoin miners, who are securing this monetary network, we're not going to get that same abatement, even though the miners had to qualify based upon jobs and investment at a similar level as Facebook and Amazon and the other data center companies, Google Cloud, et cetera. So, really just not a great bill. Mm-hmm. And again, the author of the bill, Senator Kolkhorst, and some of her co-authors are great Texas senators. If you look at their record and you look what they've done for their communities, really not a lot of concerns from us about who they are. I think they're just misinformed on the issues, and we'll really know next session, right? If they come at us with a similar bill next session, it's the same crew, then it's like, okay, they are probably in the pocket of some vested interest here, and this is beyond not understanding this issue, and then we'll have to change our tactics a little bit.
Yeah, because that, just for the people that don't know, it did pass the Senate.
That's right.
And it got killed in the House. I know you and I had talked about it a little bit at the time, and nobody wanted to see it have to go to Abbott's desk to get a veto. Just having fingers crossed, hoping that happens. But yeah, how close did that Senate vote actually come out? What was the final tally on that? Did it pass pretty easily?
Yeah, it did. So it passed on local and consent out of the Senate Business and Commerce Committee, which means there really isn't a real vote in the Senate. It just passes unanimously in the Senate. Just kind of one of those quirks of politics. So it passed unanimously in the Senate, and then it went over to the House, and it was really close. We were actually working with some folks on the House side who really understand, including, well, I guess I shouldn't say too many names here, but several members of the House really understood what this bill was going to do. And I can certainly champion a couple names: Giovanni Capriglione, who runs the IT caucus, and
that's an incredible name.
Representative.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's a great name.
A strong name. And Cody Harris from the Palestine Tyler area was a great champion for us, and they really understood what this bill was trying to do, and they realized it was a bad bill, and there's probably other things at work that we weren't aware of, but a lot of folks in the House were not interested in seeing this bill advance.
And I think that, though, really, and this is the reason I was asking, was I want to highlight how important it is for people to not take for granted what we have here. We've got some of the cheapest power in the country, with a regulatory market that is very obviously business friendly and allows for miners to come here and thrive. And we can't take it for granted, and that's why we need organizations like TBC and guys like you, Lee, out there kind of champion the industry. There can be, and I'm guilty of it myself, kind of just turning a blind eye to politics, because over the last several years, a lot of people have got turned off by it. But it goes back to just basically what I was saying earlier. It's something that you have to pay attention to, because you can get complacent and you turn around and wake up one day and you've lost your ability to, take advantage of the same type of market conditions that other industries are available to or available to other industries. And it's just something that, you don't want to take it for granted. And you got to make sure that you're supporting groups like you or groups like TBC and people like you that are out there, champion our industry. So, it's a necessary evil. Politics is, and you guys, again, I guess I'm going back to kissing your butt. You're doing a great job, and I really appreciate it. But also, so because you guys are doing a great job, do you get a lot of interaction with some of these other states that are trying to build their blockchain councils, and have you kind of turned into a mentor for some of these other states and organizations that are trying to get off the ground?
Yeah, I'll speak to that. But before I do, let me speak to something you just said. I think one thing that we really need groups like Digital Wildcatters and y'all's connection to the oil and gas industry, the energy industry, for is that industry is incredibly influential in Austin, right? Probably one of the most influential industries in the state of Texas and at the Capitol. So y'all's connection and your audience, your listeners' connection to the oil and gas industry, we have to further tie Bitcoin mining to that industry and even renewables, right? And just generation, oil and gas, all this stuff. We got to tie it all together because that industry doesn't get jacked with. They are job creators. They are, driving the economy forward, and we will eventually be of maybe not a similar scale, but at least talked of in the same sentences. But right now we're a minnow compared to the oil and gas industry. So we need to further integrate with that world. So for that reason, what the work that you guys are doing on merging those two groups is quite important.
Well, I agree, and we talk about that all the time. They're like sister industries or father-son industries. And it's a hand-in-hand relationship that I wish would develop more because they are so similar, and they do the energy kind of infrastructure aspect of Bitcoin mining is enormous, and it has the potential to do so many different things for energy grids and for oil and gas companies. And instead of them kind of ignoring each other, really need to solidify the marriage between them a lot. So I completely agree. I mean, we literally do talk about that all the time.
Yeah, I know 100%. It's like you said, the business models are so similar. Yeah, it's just like a match made in heaven. Yeah. Two little peas in a pod,
They go together like peas and carrots. But yeah, you're right. So, and we recognize that too. And we think that it's just something that we want to focus on. And we're going to continue to try to, make it a happy and fruitful marriage.
Yeah, let's hope so.
But yeah, so tell me about how much are you working with some of the other states and kind of trying to help them model their organization after you guys?
Yeah, I've co-founded a coalition, sort of a loose federation of state associations several years ago with someone named Ari Yu. She is the director of the Washington State Coalition, the Cascadia Blockchain Association. So we've co-founded an organization called the U.S. Blockchain Coalition. And together we sort of bring in other state associations. They got to do all their own work, right? They've got to build it up. But we share best practices. And from time to time, I'll jump on like a call with somebody and say, hey, this is how we did it. Let me know how we can help. Here's some tips on, from a funding perspective, from a policy lobbying perspective, how to leverage your resources to make sure you can be as influential for your members as possible. So yeah, definitely had calls with folks in Oklahoma, Pennsylvania. Love Andrew in Ohio. He's crushing it. Mm-hmm. I think Ohio is the only legitimate competitor to Texas.
I was going to ask you about them because I agree. They're growing so fast, and they're doing a good job.
Yeah, I really like him too. He's got he's got it down.
Yeah.
And I think they could become one of the largest industry associations as well. Florida's got a good association. Sam out there, let's see, Pennsylvania with Dominic is really strong. There's actually 40 associations in the 50 states.
Wow.
Does Missouri have one? Missouri, my home state. Do they have one yet?
Missouri is one of the fledgling ones.
Oh, okay, we're gonna work on that.
You might have to have.
I'm gonna work on that. Yeah.
Yeah, you should go. Yeah, definitely make some calls. I'll put you in touch with the fledgling group.
All right.
There's about 7 or 8 like strong industry associations where this is like somebody's full-time gig.
Mm-hmm.
The other 30 plus are, side hustles for people. And if it's somebody's side hustle, then
it's not getting the attention it needs.
What they need is they need one out of Springfield so you can do the meetups at Bass Pro Shop.
Dude, I totally agree.
How awesome would that
Have you been to the Bass Pro in Springfield?
I have not.
Oh my gosh, it's incredible.
It's the original. It's like the size of a mall.
It's bigger now.
Oh, it's bigger?
It's enormous. Yeah, it's huge, man. It's like an amusement park. They have waterfalls, like 50-foot waterfalls inside. It's incredible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's like a tourist attraction.
Oh yeah, dude.
That's what we need to merge together: the Bitcoin world and Bass Pro Shop.
They go together like peas and carrots. Yeah. No doubt. I completely agree. Well, so what are your plans? Are you planning on staying kind of full time at TBC going forward, or what kind of growth do you like? What
you run for governor?
Right. Where's your political future at, man? We need a Bitcoin Pro like president. Go Lee Bratcher.
So it's not possible really for me to run for office, which is good because my wife would kill me, and I've got 3 young kids. I know you guys have kids too, so it's not in the cards for me, which is a good thing. It means I can focus my attention on the TBC, and also it would be really difficult for like an industry association guy to run for office.
Yeah,
it would be really polarizing. It would probably kill the TBC. Right. Mm-hmm. So as far as like our ability to work across the aisle, with people of both parties. Long story short, just continuing to push in, spending a lot of time on the summit right now, getting the summit going. We've got I would say a similar lineup of speakers and trying to add some really big names. We've got Senator Lummis coming, Congresswoman Van Dyne, Peter McCormick, Caitlin Long, that crew that we've had before. We're also looking to get RFK or Vivek, one of the two of them.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be great to get. I think you should get both of them.
Yeah, no, we would take them both if we could.
Yeah,
we're hoping for one or the other, but if we can get them both, that'd be great.
I was wanting to ask you about RFK because he's been very outspoken about it. I know Vivek as well, but with the whole backing the dollar by Bitcoin that RFK was talking about, I mean, obviously, it's very intriguing. I'm a huge proponent of it. I don't have my tinfoil hat with me. We still need to bring him in, but I have my questions of how RFK is going to get through this primary process potentially with Biden. But I mean, obviously, having one person from both sides of the aisle running for president and making Bitcoin kind of a focus of their platforms, to think of how far we've come from just, this is we've been around 13, 14 years. And for it to be what it is now, where you got presidential candidates talking about it in a legitimate way, I mean, it's remarkable. And I don't think it should be kind of under talked about or underestimated how impressive and crazy that is, to think that we've got legitimate presidential candidates making Bitcoin and backing the US dollar with Bitcoin a part of their political position on their platform. I think it's remarkable. And I mean, can you kind of talk about what each of those candidates are saying about Bitcoin in a more in-depth and professional way than I just did?
No, you did great. I think the only thing I would add is we still have to kind of have our guard up a little bit, because they are looking for bump in sort of supporters and media attention, and this is certainly providing that for them. I think with RFK and Vivek, you can give them a little bit of a benefit of the doubt, because you look at their background, his with RFK's with privacy and Vivek's on the business side, and you can say, okay, this is logical.
Right.
This is not just a full on like political campaign to gain more media attention. There's some backing to it. but we got to look at it with sort of a realist lens, which is even if RFK gets elected president, there's no way he is going to institute that policy, right?
Right. It'll never be almost impossible to get through, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, one day, 20 years from now, maybe there's like a basket of assets, gold, Bitcoin, other, other hard assets that can back some portion of the dollar. Right. It's going to be impossible to back the dollar fully with Bitcoin.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. Lee, honestly, that's what I like about you, man. You keep the real. You don't get the fanatic stuff going. You're very realistic about this stuff, and I've said this too on the show, as well as it doesn't have. There's a lot of talk all the time about Bitcoin like destroying the dollar and all that. The reality is that happening is very, very improbable, and there would be a lot of really bad things going on if that was actually the case. Probably. I think realistically there's a world where things coexist, and you bring in it as an aspect of this. And I'm just excited that there's actually even a discussion at the presidential candidate level about Bitcoin and the
oh yeah, it's exciting. I think it'll grow every year.
Yeah, I do too. And it's like, man,
and maybe in 10 years those won't be idle promises. Like,
right.
It is
right.
It is possible in the medium term.
Yep. I agree. I agree totally, man. Yeah.
I think so too.
When we talk to elected officials about Bitcoin and the dollar, that everybody from both parties is very intent on seeing the dollar remain the world's reserve currency. So our talking points are around how the United States getting involved in Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining and having Bitcoin on the balance sheet can actually prolong the dollar as the world reserve currency, because that on the balance sheet gives greater confidence to other central banks to hold a bunch of dollars. And so that gives us a prolonged stay as the world reserve currency. The other thing is stable coins, like 96% of stable coins are in dollars, are backed by dollars, US dollars. So the more stable coin proliferation, the more power that gives the United States. And this is a if you play in the game of politics, you have to use those kinds of talking points to get them to pay attention.
Yeah, you do. You can't.
A little bit of a side tangent, but what is the point of a stable coin? I've yet to have anybody like articulate like the utility of that. If it is truly backed by USD, what is the point of a stable coin?
Well, I could tell you what we've used them for just in deals I've done is from a transaction standpoint, it's very easy. And it was clean. It like,
so instead of like wiring money and maybe it's like an international deal,
right? It was an international deal.
Transferring like USDT.
Right. It was super easy. It was super clean, and it really was like, from a standpoint of like when you're wiring money and you're using that to transfer funds, there's a lot longer
large amounts of money,
right?
Larger hold time,
right? And so from that side, from that angle, it was like, wow, this is. And I'm not gonna lie, it was terrifying at first sending, large sums of money that way. I'm like, golly, I really don't want to be the person that screws up, this letter or this number and what's going to happen. But from that standpoint, it was like, okay, wow, this is a very simple transaction, and it's backed. So you're not like, if I was holding that all in Ethereum or something like that, and you get some type of flash crash, it's terrifying. But for that transaction we did, it was very, very clean and very easy. Lee, you probably get a much more educated and better way of saying this, but that was my experience.
I think the best way to explain it is the way that you did as a business practitioner, how it helps solve a business problem for you, right?
Yeah.
Stable coins allow you to move money and move value very cheaply and very fast.
Oh, extremely cheap. I mean, I want to say the fees on one of these, and this was a very large transaction, like, 7 figures plus. It was like $50, I think, total for multiple transactions. Jeez. It's probably less than that. Maybe it's 38, something like that. So it was very, very business friendly. And that's the kind of stuff too that you touched on earlier, like the lack of education in the political world or from the politicians about what Bitcoin is, stable coins, all that is, that's everything right now to me anyway. That's the biggest issue, is just a lack of understanding of the utilization for it, what it even is, from Bitcoin mining standpoint, the energy infrastructure aspect of it and what it does and what it can allow and what it provides. Because I mean, you think from a politician wanting to get up there and tell a story, if you can go and talk about what Bitcoin mining has done for, impoverished areas or areas that don't have access to reliable grid power, it's an amazing story. And I don't know anything like it, honestly, from an energy infrastructure standpoint. It allows projects, renewable projects, which you think the people on the left would fully embrace. Bitcoin mining creates a way to generate income for some of this renewable power generation that there's nothing else like it that you can monetize right away from a renewable project when you have transmission line issues and all that for bringing that renewable power to the grid. It's like, this is the way that you go and solve the chicken or egg issue. And once they start understanding this more and spend the time talking with folks like you guys, and hopefully us and listening to us, that's the stuff where I think it'll help trigger, like, oh, now I got a story to tell. You know what I mean? Now I understand why they're talking about what this does. But I'll be honest, I think a lot of politicians don't understand the energy infrastructure at all, the existing energy infrastructure that we have, and the problems that we face with it. And so that's the parts where I think Bitcoin mining and groups that go and educate politicians about what it is and what it does, once they start getting the stories and understanding what it actually allows power generation groups to do, that's where you're going to see like kind of the light bulb moments for a lot of them, where they're going to start embracing this as a technology in the energy infrastructure world that allows them to push their other agendas forward. Is that kind of what you guys focus on at all when you're talking with them?
Yeah, and we really need more data too, right?
Yeah,
we need to present data, because every time we present data, it shows what we've been saying, which is that Bitcoin mining is it's not a panacea. It doesn't fix all the world's problems, but it does help in 3 key areas, right? Job creation, grid resilience, as far as frequency balancing, and then incentivizing new generation, right? So I guess number 2 is frequency balancing and demand response. Include both of those items in number 2. So there's 3 key areas where the data is on our side. And as long as we can continue to tell the story followed up by data, third-party data, we're going to be in a good spot.
Is there enough data coming in? Like, is there enough groups that focus on compiling that data or studies and whatnot that, like, is there more and more of that happening, or is that even a struggle to try to get that data kind of put together?
It is a struggle. Yeah, we've tried to aggregate some job creation numbers, and our latest figure is 2,000 direct jobs created in Texas and 20,000 indirect jobs. Like indirect being economic, the economic development that was brought to that region by mining has created jobs in related industries and 1099 type jobs. And so the 2,000 are like the W-2 type jobs. So, that's extrapolation though from 2 studies. We need to do a statewide study that costs $70,000, and that would give us very granular data on the economic impact.
So is that what some of the fundraising dollars go to, is funding some of these studies, like through TBC?
Yeah. Okay. So we're raising money for that. That's kind of a long-term thing. It's not easy to raise that kind of money for one report, right? And that would be done by somebody like Ernst & Young or a big firm that does economic analysis. The other key component here is really educating just in the offices with the staffers, and bringing them, anecdotal data from their district about job creation, like bringing down somebody, like they need to see the face of the person that was hired. Right. It's like, oh, I used to live in this town in your district, and now I'm working at this Bitcoin mine.
Yeah. What about like a tax revenue basis? Have there been any studies about like what kind of tax revenue has the mining industry generated in Texas?
So there's the same two studies that I referenced. It also covered tax revenue as far as aggregate economic impact. So if we were to do a full statewide study with a large firm, then they would cover tax impact as well.
Do you have a number from the last one that was done?
We weren't able to aggregate that or extrapolate it because it was easier to extrapolate the jobs numbers because we could just do some surveys with miners, look at how many megawatts are here and extrapolate it. There's the tax stuff is way more complex and convoluted because of different exemptions. But another thing on the data front is getting involved with the ERCOT Large Flexible Load Task Force, that Texas A&M Blockchain Energy Initiative led by Professor Shee out there at A&M. That's really helpful data too, because you're seeing how the load is responsive. Every time we have a winter event or a summer heat wave, I'm talking to ERCOT saying, hey, what are we looking at? How's it looking? How are we doing? And they can't give me like detailed data, but they can give me aggregated and anonymized information, right? That they're permitted to share. So if we were able to get that data internally, like exact to the number, that would be helpful. But again, we're able to extrapolate using some ERCOT data and our own data to come up with estimates that are fairly close, like within plus or minus 3 or 4 percentage points.
Okay. Have things changed? And I'm sorry to bounce around with it. We get like serious questions, and I'm like, has it changed a lot from when you first got going to compared to now, as far as being able to get an audience with some of the decision makers? Has it gotten a lot easier, or was it really difficult at the start to kind of get taken seriously, or how has that kind of trajectory played out?
Yeah, I think just like anything in business and politics, the more influence you have, the easier the doors are to open. So it's gotten easier as we've gone on. I think it helps so we've had a lobbyist that's worked with us for 4 years named Reed Clay.
Yep.
He opened some doors really early on. He used to work for Governor Abbott.
Okay.
And so that was really helpful in the first year where nobody had heard of us. And, we had that event in I want to say it was 2021 or 2020. I can't remember, probably 2021 with, at the governor's mansion. It might even have been before that. And there's no way we could have gotten in there without Reed, right? So we had 40 of our big, executives from our biggest members come out to the governor's mansion, spend an hour with him at his, at the mansion, kind of a reception type of thing. No way that could have happened without him. So there's been some people that have really helped on that front, and now that our name is out there a little bit more, it's easier, but never easy, if that makes sense.
Have you been working with the Dennis's group, the Satoshi Action Fund and Satoshi Action Education Fund much?
Yeah, we have. We've worked with Dennis for a long time. He and I got to know each other on the conference circuit a couple of years ago, and we would share Ubers from different, fundraisers or speaking things. And so I've known Dennis for a while, and we worked together on some stuff for sure. Yeah.
They've been doing some good work with some of the state governments as well, kind of all over the place. And yeah, I've been happy with the progress they've been doing as well. I'm on their Satoshi Education Fund board, so I'm a homer, but yeah, he's a good dude.
We haven't had him on the podcast yet.
Yeah, I know. We need to get him on here too. And we'll put him on the hot seat. So
yeah, you might have to do virtual for him too.
I'm gonna make him come out here. He owes me. He's coming up here for NAPE, so we'll be doing something there.
We'll be down for NAPE too.
Yeah. We'll have you back. Maybe we'll have you guys on at the same time.
In person,
in the flesh. It'll be
at the Bitcoin Mining Pavilion.
We should do that. Yeah, that'll be fun. I'm speaking of that. My hair's gonna be really long by then.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna just let it keep going, man. No haircut. You know how much money I've been saving? Oh my gosh.
Well, I spend like $60 every 2 weeks.
Yeah, not me, man. I've been saving all kinds of money. But yeah, Lee. Well, man, look, I don't want to sound too much like a fanboy of TBC and you, but I really do think you've done a remarkable job over the past few years of kind of making Texas the preeminent place to mine Bitcoin. And, that hash rate that's coming out of Texas and the megawatts that you referenced, or gigawatts that you referenced, like that has a lot to do with the efforts that you've shown and that you've put forth in making Texas a safe home for miners to come to. And, I know it's not an easy job, and you do deal with, people trying to get after you a little bit about, having to play the middle on the blockchain and Bitcoin world. But I think you've done a great job, and you've always had a wonderful attitude and a good presence. And I just really admire how hard you've worked at trying to do what you've done for Texas. So thank you.
Appreciate it, guys. And it's not possible without members, right? Like Martin Legal, Digital Wildcatters. The way that you guys work with us is awesome, and it was an honor to be on the show.
Yeah, man. Anytime. We'd love to have you back. And again, we are going to have you back at Nate.
It's going to be fun.
He committed.
What is that, February?
You know how you got to hold these politicians' feet to the fire. That we're taking it as a commitment. You did it. You said yes. Yeah, February. It's like the first week of February. Okay. NAPE's going to be good this year. I was actually talking with some of the organizers last week or 2 weeks ago when I was in Miami, and they got some big stuff planned for Bitcoin and miners. And they really are trying to pull it into NAPE more and make it more of a prominent part of it. So I think it's good. And shoot, I'll give you guys credit for that too, Lee. I think that what you guys have done has played a part of that. What you guys have been doing has been playing a huge part of that. So they even brought that up during the call. So I forgot to tell you that.
Oh, I'd love to hear more about this.
Yeah. It's good stuff. Good stuff.
Lee, it's been great having you. We'll catch up with you soon. Guys, if you like the episode, take 2 seconds. Subscribe, share with all your friends. Go check out TBC. Lee, when's the summit, by the way? Go ahead and plug that really quickly.
Summit is November 15th through 17th. So we are going to have a landman continuing ed class at the summit. Actually, 4 landman classes. So NAPE's helping us put that on.
I think I'm speaking at that. I think I'm speaking at it.
Oh, yeah. That's September. We're doing 2. One in September.
Okay,
We'll bring you back in November, too.
All right. So November is in Fort Worth or Austin?
Fort Worth Convention Center. Yep.
Fort Worth Convention Center. That's right. Okay. Yeah, man, we're excited.
Shout out to Mayor Matty Parker in Fort Worth for being the first city in the U.S. to mine Bitcoin.
That's right.
So in response to that, we decided we'd move the summit up there.
Nice.
I'm looking forward to it, man.
I am too.
So
it's going to be good.
We'll catch both of us at the summit. So if you guys are watching, listening, we hope to catch you guys there too. Lee, great chatting with you. We'll talk to you soon, bud.
Thank you, Lee.